Welcome back, guys. Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me from where you're watching? Thanks. You ever get that weird feeling like someone's watching you? Not in a movie kind of way. I mean the real deal. You're just going about your business, then out of nowhere your skin crawls like invisible eyes are locked on you. Yeah. I didn't used to think that stuff was real either. But then came the fall of 2019. I was 15 and living with my Aunt Lydia in a small sleepy town called Elk Hollow, out in western Pennsylvania. My mom had passed the year before and Aunt Lydia took me in. We weren't super close, but she was kind. And I appreciated that. Anyway, she rented this 2-story house at the end of a dead-end street. Real quiet, no traffic, just a row of older homes and a lot of overgrown trees. Our place was on the top floor and my room faced the road. Directly across from my window sat this 1-story house that always looked kinda off. It had peeling pale blue siding, curtains that were always drawn shut, and not a single sign of life. No parked car, no porch light, nothing. But the lawn, perfectly trimmed, every time. Like someone was watching over it, even if you never saw who. At first, I didn't think much of it. I was starting a new school, trying to keep up with classes and settle into a new life. My room got this soft afternoon light and I'd sit by the window to do homework or scroll on my phone. It felt peaceful, until it didn't. It started with this feeling I got one night, maybe late September. I was sitting at my desk, earbuds in, music low, when I suddenly felt like something was wrong. You know when a room just feels different? Like the air changes? I glanced up and looked out the window. Across the street, behind the curtain of that strange house, I saw it, the faint outline of a head. Like someone was standing there perfectly still behind the fabric. I couldn't see eyes or a face, just the shape. I blinked, looked again. It was gone. I laughed at myself, figured it was just a shadow or something. But the next night? Same thing. And the night after that? Still there. Always around the same time, just after the sun went down. The shape never moved. Never flinched. Just stood there. After about a week, I told Aunt Lydia. She raised an eyebrow and said, "It's probably nothing, sweetie. Some folks are just private." Then she added jokingly, "Maybe it's a ghost neighbor." We both chuckled. But I didn't feel like laughing. I didn't tell her that. On 2 separate nights, I thought I saw the curtain shift. Just a little. Like it was pulled slightly open. And I swear to you, someone was watching me. I started testing it. One night, around 8:30, I turned off all the lights in my room and stepped back from the window. Just barely peeking through the side. The shape was there again. Unmoving. I crept forward, watching for any flicker of motion, but it just stood there, like a statue. A few nights later, I did the opposite. I left my lamp on and sat right at my desk, front and center. Made myself easy to spot. After a minute or two, the curtain twitched. Not much. Just enough to see a sliver more of the figure behind it. And I knew right then, it wasn't a trick of the light. It was a person. My chest went tight. My stomach twisted. From that night on, I kept my curtains shut. Always. But even then, I felt it. That invisible gaze. I'd be brushing my teeth, reading a book, half watching TV, and then I'd just know. Someone was looking right into my window. Eventually, I told Aunt Lydia again. This time, I gave her the full story. Every weird feeling, every night I saw the shape, every time the curtain moved. Her smile faded fast. She said she'd talk to the property manager in the morning and see what she could find out about the house. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I got out of bed and slowly peeled my curtain open, just enough to peek out. What I saw made my heart stop. The shape was still there, but this time I could see the face, eyes wide, not blinking, staring directly at me. There was no expression, no curiosity, just cold, blank eyes locked onto mine. I yanked the curtain closed so fast I nearly tore it. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every little creak in the house made me jump. Every rustle outside sent chills down my spine. The next day, Aunt Lydia told me the property manager said a man named Carl lived in that house, but no one had seen him in months. He'd lived there alone for years, paid rent on time, never caused trouble. But no one had heard from him lately. The manager agreed to go check in that afternoon. When I got home from school, I saw a silver SUV parked in front of that house. A woman stood outside talking to the property manager. She looked upset. She kept glancing at the house, pointing at the front window, my window. I didn't know why, but I felt cold all over. I backed away from the window. That night, the manager knocked on our door. Aunt Lydia let him in, and we sat at the table while he told us what happened. He said the woman was Carl's sister. She hadn't been able to reach him for weeks, so they used a spare key and went inside. He told us the moment they stepped through the door, the smell hit them. This stale, dusty air, like the house had been sealed up for ages. Every surface was covered in dust. No food, no lights, but everything was in place. Like someone had left in the middle of their life and never came back. Then they walked into the living room, the one facing my bedroom. The curtains were drawn, just like I'd described. But when they pulled them open, they didn't find Carl. They found mannequins, 3 of them, life-sized, all wearing regular clothes, jeans, flannel shirts, jackets. They were lined up side by side facing the window. At first, the manager said they just stared. It was so lifelike it gave them both chills. Then, he noticed something worse. Each mannequin had tiny, black dots in their eyes, camera, lenses. There were cameras in all 3 mannequins' heads. Wires ran from the floor down to the basement. They called the police right away. The police found a small room in the basement, filled with monitors, all showing live footage from the mannequin's point of view. And next to the screens, notebooks, dozens of them. Every notebook was filled with detailed notes about the neighbors' lives, what time they left the house, what time they came home, who they talked to, what they wore, and me. There were entire pages on me. What time I turned on my light, what clothes I wore, how long I studied, even what songs I played when my window was open. Carl was gone. No trace, no note, nothing. Just an empty house, 3 mannequins with cameras for eyes, and enough notes to make your skin crawl off your bones. No one knows what happened to him. He had no criminal record, no warnings, just vanished. After that, Aunt Lydia didn't ask questions. We packed up and moved within the week. Didn't even finish out the lease. We left El Calo behind without looking back. But I've never really escaped it. Even now, in a new town, in a new home, I can't sleep unless my curtains are closed tight. Sometimes I still feel it, that heavy watching feeling. And I tell myself it's nothing, just nerves, but every now and then when I pass a dark window, I get the urge to peek out and I wonder, what if someone's still watching? What if they never stopped? So this all started last summer in 2023 after I turned 20. I just moved into a new place on my own for the first time. A small apartment complex on the outskirts of a sleepy little town in Wisconsin called Red Pine. You've probably never heard of it. It's one of those places where everything shuts down by 9 p.m. and everybody acts like they know each other, but no one really does. Perfect for someone like me who just wanted peace and quiet. I'd saved up from my job at a local hardware store. Boring, but it paid okay. The apartment wasn't fancy. The building looked like it hadn't been painted in years, and the security gate at the front was more for decoration than protection. Half the time it just stood open, like it had given up trying to keep people out. Still, the rent was cheap and I was desperate to get out of my mom's place, so I moved into a second-floor unit near the back of the lot. There was no assigned parking, which turned out to be a problem. People usually stuck to the same spots out of habit, but technically, you could park anywhere. The lot wrapped around the building in a U-shape, and way down at the far end, past the flickering streetlight and the reeking dumpster, there was a weird little corner space. It always seemed a bit too dark and a bit too quiet. That was the end spot. My first couple of weeks there were uneventful. I kept to myself, just working and watching Netflix. But now and then, I'd see this woman on the ground floor. She lived directly beneath me, mid-40s maybe, pale, always in sweatpants, and usually dragging in bags late at night. Not grocery bags, more like old duffel bags. Sometimes trash bags. Sometimes she looked right through me like I wasn't there. Other times she'd glance at me with this half-warning look. I didn't know what her deal was, and honestly I didn't care. At least not until the night I got home super late from a closing shift. It was around 1 a.m. and all the usual parking spots near my stairs were full. The only space left was, the end spot, right next to the dumpster. I hesitated for a second. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way the shadows looked thicker over there, or how the light from the lamppost above kept flickering like it was struggling to stay alive. But I was too tired to care. I parked, grabbed my bag, and went straight upstairs. The next morning I came out and just stood there staring at my car. Both front tires were flat. Not low, not leaking. Flat. Like someone had taken a knife and gutted them. I looked around the lot, but it was dead silent. No one was outside. I turned to go back inside to call someone, and that's when I noticed her, the woman downstairs, peeking out through her curtains, just barely. But when our eyes met, she dropped them in an instant, like she hadn't meant to be seen. I called the landlord, but he said, "We don't have cameras, sorry, you should probably call the cops." Not exactly helpful. While I waited for the tow truck, I kept thinking about that woman watching me. I had this awful crawling feeling that she knew something, or worse, that she'd been involved. That night I knocked on her door, just to ask if she'd seen anything. She opened it only a crack. Her face looked pale and exhausted, like she hadn't slept in a while. I asked, "Did you notice anything weird last night? Someone near my car?" She said flatly, "No, but you shouldn't park down there again." Then she closed the door, didn't say goodbye, didn't explain, just shut it. After that, I avoided the end spot. Even if it meant parking at the far end of the lot and carrying groceries half a mile, I didn't care. I wasn't going to risk it again. And for a little while, things were fine. Quiet. Well, mostly. At night, I could still hear the arguments from the apartment below. Sometimes muffled, sometimes loud enough that I caught words like money, waste, or you promised. But the voices didn't always match. Sometimes it was the woman and a man. Sometimes it sounded like more than two people. Once I could have sworn I heard someone crying. Not yelling, just quiet sobbing, way past midnight. A week or so later, I saw the woman again. She was dragging a small suitcase and 2 full trash bags up the stairs. I offered to help, but she flinched when I spoke and muttered, "I've got it." Her hands were shaking. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. She kept glancing toward the dumpster, toward the end spot, like she was expecting someone to crawl out from behind it. I asked, trying to be casual, "That tire thing ever happened to anyone else?" She stopped just for a second and said, "You should mind your business." Then she kept walking. A few days after that, a new car appeared in the end spot. An old, rusty blue sedan I didn't recognize. The next morning, it had a dent in the door and 1 flat tire, just like mine. I watched from my window as the woman came out, stared at the car for a long time, then went back inside. About 30 minutes later, a man came out. I'd never seen him before. Big guy. Shaved head. Angry. He walked around the car, kicked the flat tire so hard the whole car shook, then stormed back into the building. That blue sedan sat there for 3 days and then vanished. No note. No tow truck. Just gone. The building started to feel heavier after that, like the air itself was different, thick, like it was watching. I stopped talking to anyone, stopped waving to neighbors. I didn't want to know who lived where or what they were hiding. Then one night as I was coming up the stairs, the woman stopped me. Her voice was quieter this time, more human. She asked if I was okay. I said yeah, and she said, "Don't get involved with anyone in this place. Just keep your head down. That was it. She disappeared for days after that. Her blinds stayed shut. No late-night bags, no arguments, nothing. Then came the worst night. I got home late again. Not as late as before, maybe 11:30. The lot was full except for one space. Of course, it was the end spot. I almost circled the block out of spite, but I told myself, come on, you're being paranoid. So I parked there. As I walked toward the stairs, I heard shouting, loud, violent, from her apartment. The man's voice boomed through the walls. Then I heard something crash. I picked up my pace, but before I reached my door, her door opened. She stepped out and called my name. Her eyes were wide, her voice shaking. She asked if I could come inside. She needed help. Inside her apartment, it smelled off, like damp clothes and old food. The lights were dim. She sat on the edge of the couch, gripping her knees like she was holding herself together. He thinks that spot belongs to him, she whispered. The end space. The one by the dumpster. He thinks it's his. I asked who he was. My husband, she said. He doesn't live here on paper, but he's here. And when anyone parks there, he gets angry. Really angry. Then she said it. He's the one who slashed your tires. I asked why she never called the police. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, because I'm trapped. I have no one, nowhere else to go. She asked if I'd help her leave. I said yes. The next morning, while he was gone, who knows where, I helped her pack. 2 bags, a suitcase, some cash. I called a rideshare and watched her get into the car. She didn't look back. That night he came back, pounded on my door, screamed, demanded to know where she was. I didn't answer. I locked the deadbolt and called the police. When they arrived, he was still yelling, at them, at me, at the walls, but they made him leave. 2 days later, he moved out. After that, the building changed. The air felt clearer. No more shouting. No more tire slashings. No more people crying through the walls. The landlord finally installed a camera above the dumpster. A few weeks later, I found a note in my mailbox. No name, just, thank you. I never saw her again, and I never parked in that end spot again either. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind is just right, I swear I can still hear someone arguing down there, like the space still belongs to someone, and they're not done watching. I live in a small town in northern Oregon. It's one of those quiet neighborhoods where everybody keeps to themselves, but you still sort of recognize everyone's routines. Nothing ever really happens here until it does. It's around 3:30 in the morning right now. I should be asleep, but I'm not. I'm sitting here writing this because something really strange happened tonight. Something I can't stop thinking about. I live across the street from an older couple. I don't know their names, never talk to them, but I see them around from time to time. Let's call them Mr. and Mrs. Hill. They seem like they're in their 70s. They keep to themselves. I've seen them outside during the day watering their little garden or rolling the trash to the curb. Nothing unusual. Most nights I can't sleep. So I usually just lie in bed, scrolling through my phone or staring out my bedroom window. My window faces the street and directly across is the Hills' house. Over time, I've picked up on their patterns, lights off by 10, curtains drawn, nothing weird. But tonight was different. Around 2 a.m., I heard this loud bang from outside, like someone had slammed the trunk of a car really hard. I peeked out the window and saw Mrs. Hill getting into their car. She pulled out of the driveway and sped off down the road. That instantly felt off. I've never seen her drive. It's always Mr. Hill behind the wheel, always. Plus, all the lights in the house were still on. That never happens. I figured maybe it was some kind of emergency. Maybe she had to rush to the hospital or something. I tried not to let it bother me. But then around 3:01 she came back, and this time things got even weirder. She pulled into the driveway way too fast, like she was in a panic. She jumped out of the car, looked around nervously, and then started pacing near the trunk like she was looking for something. Then she rushed back into the house. Only a few minutes later she came back out. But now she was carrying a little metal stepladder and a pack of cleaning wipes. She set the ladder up, climbed up one step, and started wiping down the windowsills. At 3 hours in the freaking morning, she wiped every single window on the front of the house. Carefully, methodically, like she was scrubbing something off. The wipes she was using were the kind you get in those big plastic tubs like disinfectant wipes. She used one, tossed it, pulled another, over and over again. It was like watching someone clean up after something they didn't want anyone else to see. When she finished, she folded up the ladder, put it in the trunk, got in the car again, and drove off just as fast as before. I stared at the house for a long time after that, but I didn't see any lights go off. I didn't see Mr. Hill, nothing. I saw him earlier in the day. He was outside watering the garden around 6 or 7 p.m., like he always does. But now, after all this, I started wondering, where was he? The whole thing gave me the creeps. Still does. That wasn't the only weird thing that happened this year. There's something else I need to talk about, something even more unsettling. Back in October of 2022, me and my cousin Leah went to spend the weekend with a couple she'd recently become friends with, Matt and Elise. We didn't know them that well, but Leah said they were fun and had invited us to hang out at their campsite near a lake called Maple Hollow. It was in the middle of the woods, real quiet, real remote. We weren't planning to stay overnight, just roast some marshmallows, have a drink, hang out by the fire, that kind of thing. We got there around 4:30 in the afternoon. We had some snacks, cracked open a few hard ciders, and let Matt and Elise's dog run around near the water. Everything was chill. I had maybe 4 or 5 drinks over the span of a few hours. Same with Leah. We ate plenty, drank water in between. We weren't drunk, just relaxed. Around 8:30 p.m., Matt suggested we all walk down to the lake. It wasn't far, maybe half a mile down a little dirt trail. I checked the time on my phone before locking it in the car so I wouldn't drop it. That's the last thing I clearly remember. The next thing I knew, I was waking up on the forest floor. It was pitch black, cold, and silent. I was lying half on top of Leah, and she was lying flat on her back, eyes closed. It looked like someone had just placed us there. We were on a narrow trail, surrounded by thick trees and moss-covered ground. I had no idea where we were. I shook Leah awake. She looked confused and sick. We both felt horrible, dizzy, weak, nauseated. Our heads were spinning and we had no clue how we ended up there. We started throwing up almost immediately. I could barely stand. Leah was crying. It felt like we'd been drugged or something. It took us over an hour to walk back to the campsite. Somehow we'd ended up almost an hour's hike away from where we started. When we finally stumbled back to the site, I unlocked the car, grabbed my phone, and checked the time, 30 a.m. We'd lost 6 hours. We walked up to Matt and Elise's tent and knocked. Matt came out and looked at us like nothing was wrong. Leah told him something didn't feel right and that we were going to leave. That's when Matt asked, "Where's Elise?" We were like, "What do you mean? Isn't she in the tent with you?" He said no. He thought she was with us. The 3 of us immediately realized something was really wrong. Matt said the last thing he remembered was talking about going to the lake. And then he woke up under the picnic table at the campsite. What? He seemed calm. Too calm. We started calling out for Elise. Eventually, we found her down the same trail we had just come from. She was lying on her side, unconscious but breathing. When we woke her up, she was just as confused as we had been. None of us remembered anything. Not the walk. Not collapsing. Not how we got split up. It was like the forest had just swallowed us and spit us out in random places. We left immediately. The drive home was silent. Both Leah and I were still shaking. We didn't know what had just happened. The next morning, Matt texted Leah and made a joke out of it. Guess we can't handle our drinks. But that didn't sit right with us, especially when he started changing the story. Now he claimed we went to the lake without him, that he stayed behind to watch the dog. It didn't match what he said the night before. Something didn't add up. Later, we called the park ranger. Leah's phone had gone missing during all of this, and we wanted to see if someone had turned it in. They had. It was found broken, face down in the woods between campsites 4 and 7. but we were staying at Site 2. It shouldn't have been anywhere near there. Even stranger, the front of the phone was perfectly fine. It was only the back that was shattered, like it had been hit with something hard. It never powered back on. For days afterward, Leah was really sick. I had chills and couldn't stop shaking. We didn't go to the hospital, but honestly, we probably should have. Something happened that night. Something we still don't understand. Sometimes I wonder if Matt and Elise did something to us, or if something else did. I started reading about strange stories from that area. Disappearances, sightings, local legends. One that kept coming up was about the forest caller, some shadowy figure people claim to see in the woods, especially around Maple Hollow. It's said to lure people off trails, mess with time, and leave them lost. Or worse, maybe it's just folklore, but then again, maybe not. We haven't talked to Matt or Elise since. I blocked them. We moved across the state in early 2023, unrelated reasons, but part of me is glad we did. I still think about that night. I still dream about waking up on that cold trail, not knowing how I got there. And I still watch the house across the street wondering where Mr. Hill went. And what exactly Mrs. Hill was scrubbing off those windows at 3 in the morning.